much to the evolution of the young nation. The other speakers will speak much more to that, but also in observance of the 194th anniversary of the passing of President James Monroe, which takes place on this day 194 years ago. With that being said, I'd like you to all be upstanding and give the appropriate motions towards the flag. We're going to lower the flag in observance of that president's passing. Thank you very much. You may be seated. I would like to welcome our first speaker today, Robert Kelly from the American Friends of Lafayette. If you please give him a warm welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I was worried about being on time this morning. For those of you who don't know, I live right there, so I made sure to get up a little extra early this morning to speak. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here. This is the second year in a row that the American Friends of Lafayette have been proud to be a part of this ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests and fellow Americans, today, as we gather at Freedom's Fortress to celebrate the birth of our nation, let us also remember the extraordinary young man whose courage and conviction helped shape the destiny of America, the Marquis de Lafayette. Born into French nobility in 1757, Lafayette could have chosen a life of comfort and privilege. But from a young age, he was inspired by the ideals of liberty and justice. At only 19, he made a decision that would change the course of history, not just for himself, but for two nations. In 1777, Lafayette purchased his own ship and crossed the Atlantic. Driven by a passion for freedom and a dream of a better world, he arrived in America as a stranger, yet he quickly became one of our greatest friends. Lafayette offered his service to the Continental Army without pay, pledging his fortune and his life to the cause of American independence. He formed a close bond with General George Washington, who came to regard him as a son. Lafayette's bravery was legendary. He fought valiantly at Brandywine, where he was wounded but refused to leave the field. He played a crucial role at Valley Forge, boosting morale and advocating for better conditions for the troops. And at Yorktown, his leadership helped secure the decisive victory that ended the war. But Lafayette's contributions did not end on the battlefield. He was a bridge between America and France, securing vital support that made our victory possible. His advocacy for liberty did not stop at our shores. Returning to France, Lafayette continued his work as a champion of human rights, fighting for the abolition of slavery and the expansion of civil liberties. Lafayette also has a Fort Monroe connection. He recommended the engineer, Simon Bernard, the French engineer, Simon Bernard, to President Madison to help build this fort that becomes the nation's largest, the largest masonry fort in all of North America. This was an extension of Lafayette's desire to ensure that the American experiment was successful, protecting the coastline of not only Virginia, but the United States. Later in his life, Lafayette traveled one final time to America in 1824 as an official guest of the nation, invited by none other than his friend from the Revolution, President James Monroe. At the age of 66, Lafayette was the last surviving Continental Army Major General. At the time, President Monroe thought that if invited Lafayette, it might foster unity and renew patriotism among our citizens, especially as the nation approached its 50th anniversary of independence. Lafayette's final trip to America lasted 13 months. He visited all the then existing 24 states and was the first foreign dignitary to address a joint session of Congress. Traveling an estimated 6,000 miles, he was hosted by countless cities and towns, including New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Washington City, and even Fort Monroe. He met with former presidents John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, and of course Presidents James Monroe and John Quincy Adams. He was given a hero's welcome everywhere he visited. Lavish parties, parades, and speeches celebrating his heroism, fame, and connection to George Washington. To celebrate the bicentennial of Lafayette's return, the 1,500-member American Friends of Lafayette have organized a 13-month, 24-state, 350-event commemoration. 350 events. You heard that correctly. Educational programming began in New York this past August and will continue through September 2025. In fact, today, we have a large contingent of our membership in New York City. And right at this very moment, 10 o'clock, there is a ceremony taking place at another fort and National Park Service site, Castle Clinton, where Lafayette was exactly 200 years ago today. To date, the American Friends of Lafayette have brought history to life for tens of thousands through reenactments, school outreach, of course Lafayette wine and beer, and free public programs, including events this past fall in Williamsburg and Yorktown, where the French Air and Space Force sent 3 airplanes and over 50 personnel to provide ceremonial flyovers. They came over for those flyovers, and then they went back to France. They were here about 4 days. It was an amazing, amazing moment in this celebration. We also held a grand dinner here at the Chamberlain to commemorate Lafayette's overnight visit to Fort Monroe this past August 24, 25, 2024. Just in the past few months, we have held commemorations as far south as New Orleans, as far west as St. Louis, and as far north as the state of Maine. Every day, this bicentennial commemoration reminds all Americans that throughout his life, Lafayette strongly supported Enlightenment principles, human rights for all, religious freedom, Native American rights, equality for women, and freedom of the press. He was a leading abolitionist of his time and always fought for liberty, equality, and freedom. Don't take my word for it. Listen to the words of 28-year-old Lafayette as he writes to his friend John Adams on February 22nd, 1786, quote, "Whatever be the complexion of the enslaved, it does not, in my opinion, alter the complexion of the crime which the enslaver commits, a crime much blacker than any African face. It is to me a matter of great anxiety and concern to find that this trade is sometimes perpetrated under the flag of liberty. Our dear and noble stripes, to which virtue and glory have been constant standard bearers." Here's an excerpt from another Lafayette letter written to Thomas Jefferson on July 1, 1821. "Are you sure, my dear friend, that extending the principle of slavery to the new raised states is a method to facilitate the means of getting rid of it? I would have thought, by spreading the prejudices, habits, and calculations of planters over a larger surface, you rather increase the difficulties of final liberation. Actions speak even louder than words. Listen to this observation recorded in the Richmond Enquirer newspaper about Lafayette's visit to Yorktown on October 19, 1824. Quote, "A black man even, who rendered him services by way of information as a spy, for which he was liberated by the state, was recognized by him in the crowd, called to him by name, and taken into his embrace." This was intentional. This was intentional. Lafayette was making an effort for this whole crowd to see that he was going to embrace a man that had been formerly enslaved. Today we know this black man to be James Lafayette, the famed double-agent spy who aided the Continental Army during the Yorktown campaign. General Lafayette's unwavering commitment to liberty, equality, and freedom not only shaped his personal legacy, but also came to symbolize the enduring legacy between France and the United States, forged with his help in 1778, which proved crucial in securing victory at Yorktown. Our two countries have remained at one another's side for almost 250 years. Lafayette's life reminds us that the struggle for freedom is not bound by borders or birthright. It is a universal cause, calling forth the best in all of us. His youthful courage and unwavering belief in the power of liberty continues to inspire generations. As we celebrate our independence today at Freedom's Fortress, let us remember Lafayette, the young man who crossed an ocean for a dream, who fought not just for America, but for the promise of freedom everywhere. May his legacy remind us of the enduring bonds of friendship and the timeless pursuit of liberty. My friends, the work of freedom is never done. Vive Lafayette, vive la France, God bless America.
Thank you very much, Robert Kelly. Appreciate your words. That we'd like to also now bring up Mark Walsh with the James Monroe Memorial Foundation.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to talk today about something a little different than usual. Usually I'd like to talk about the historical things that have happened, what happened 200 years ago, all those other things. Today I want to talk about something different. I want to talk about James Monroe's youth and his sense of public service that was his patriotism. What are we looking for today on July 4th? Why do we do this? Because we're patriotic, aren't we? That's why we're here. Huzzah. Indeed. So I want to talk to you about a young James Monroe, born 1758, 1 year after the Marquis. His mother dies when he's 14. His father, Spence, who is a planter in Westmoreland County, dies when he's 16. At the age of 16, James Monroe is the head of the household in his family. He has a younger sister and 3 younger brothers to look after. So this sense of dedication to his family and taking his responsibilities very seriously is at a very, very young age. He's very fortunate to have a maternal uncle by the name of Joseph Jones, who is a wealthy planter and also a member of the House of Burgesses. So his uncle Joseph takes him to Williamsburg at the age of 16 to study law at William and Mary. While he's there, he meets George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and others. The 3 in particular, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe, will become the core of the Democratic Republican Party as it advances. But at the age of 16, these are the people that he's dealing with. These are the people he's talking to. This is where he's getting his sense of public service from his uncle and from these men who are dedicated Virginians who want to see liberty go forward. 1776, 75, I guess actually, Lord Dunmore confiscates all of the arms in the armory, and the students at William and Mary drop their classes, rebel, and protest, and actually get a cash payment, which is not enough. They want everything back. So Monroe is incensed by all of this, and his sense of public service, his patriotism, leads him to enlist with the 3rd Regiment of the Virginia line. Because he has some education, he is enlisted as a lieutenant. He goes to Trenton, crosses the Delaware with Washington, and if you see that famous painting where they're crossing, the man holding the flag behind him, leaning backwards, is supposed to be Monroe. Monroe goes with his troop that he's commanding to take a cannon away from the Hessians, and is wounded in his left shoulder. It cuts through an artery, he nearly dies, but he does not stop and go home disabled as he might have. His sense of public service again. He continues to serve, rises to the rank of major, is the aide-de-camp to General Sterling, Lord Sterling. Continues on through the rest of the wars is going in this capacity. After Brandywine, 1777, which Robert was just referring to, the Marquis de Lafayette is wounded. Well, Thomas Jefferson doesn't know this, nobody else knows this, but James Monroe knows how to speak French. So George Washington asks him to go and stay with the Marquis to help him comfort during his recovery, which he does. And the two of them become fast friends. They're also together during the winter at Valley Forge. And again, this notion that the two of them have, both wounded, one worse than the other, because the Marquis can still take the field, Monroe cannot. This sense of patriotism and public service is there throughout and follows him through the rest of his life, through his military service, through his diplomatic service, through his political service as the governor of Virginia, as a senator from Virginia in the first Congress after the Constitution, and eventually as the President of the United States. Now think about this, what I was just saying. At the age of 16, he is together with all four of those men who will become known as the Virginia dynasty: Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. They knew each other. They talked about things before there ever was a government of the United States, before there ever was a revolution. They knew each other. And this is largely because of the work of his uncle, Joseph Jones, who introduced him to all these people. But I want to say this because people will generally associate James Monroe with the Monroe Doctrine. Very important, yes it is. They will associate him with the era of good feelings during his presidency, his 2 terms. More than that, though, from a very early age, from the age of 16, this man is developing a sense of public service and patriotism. This is what drove the era of good feelings. This is what drove this man forward. This is what made his political career. This is why he traveled through the country and was as well known as Washington in his time. We all forgot that. There's a reason why we forgot that, because a lot of the planters were very upset with Monroe in Virginia when, after being president and retired in 1829, there was a constitutional convention here in Virginia, and he could not put anything on the floor by way of a resolution, but he could make a suggestion, which he did. He suggested that every man, woman, and child enslaved in Virginia be immediately emancipated, put on ships, and sent to Liberia to live freely in Africa again. Now, why is it that we don't hear more about Monroe? Could it be that people were so incensed by the idea of his abolitionism that they decided to bury his good work, to try and destroy his legacy? Well, we won't let them do that. Remember, from the age of 16, this man was moving forward. From the age of 16, this man was showing patriotism, public service, and moving forward in terms of making life better for his fellow Americans at that time, his fellow Virginians, fellow Americans. So, here's our challenge today, folks. The things that both Robert and I have been talking about take a lot of work to keep going. So everyone, think about your own ideals of public service, your own ideals of making the world a better place, your own ideals for a new era of good feelings. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Mark. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here today. Programs like this, events like the overall today's events, the 4th of July, and all the symbology that is behind it and sort of the reason for the occasion is really improved and bolstered by those of us that take their own moments to remember, reflect, engage, and have your own sense of what that means, which could mean at home doing the dishes, thinking about these things, coming to events and joining us here, but you're being a part of today's audience, and what will happen throughout the day helps us all collectively find those opportunities to engage with each other, to have conversation and reflection as a community, as a nation. It is on this space that not more than an hour ago, we welcomed 98 new citizens to the United States with a naturalization ceremony that we were very happy to have happen with the partnership of the overall day's events and welcoming 98 new members of this nation, along with who knows how many across the nation at other such ceremonies. We continue to grow and move forward, as has been referenced in today's speakers, and be influenced by the relationships that we build and create our own senses of understanding for this nation and the direction and the freedoms and the rights and the laws that have been founded by these patriots that risked so much, including their lives and their futures, by trying to break away from the nation that they had known and served for many years to form this new representative republic that is the United States. And so you're playing your part today in remembering these details and giving observance to one of 3 presidents that would die on the 4th of July, not all at the same time, but two of them was the same day, but this present, for which this fort is named, is appreciated by those collected here and gives us all something new to perhaps think about. So thank you for coming. Hope you can enjoy the rest of today's events that will happen. And we look forward to seeing you again here next year for the 195th observance in that instance. But that being said, we do need to return the flag back to full staff and conclude our recognition of the observance of President Monroe's death. So with that being said, if you would be upstanding again, give the appropriate honors, we will return the flag. Thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of your day here at Freedom's Fortress. For a brief epilogue, Mark Walsh.
Thank you, Aaron. I just wanted to take a second, first of all, to thank our two translators. Job well done. Thank you very much. Also, I wanted to mention that the foundation has with us from Fredericksburg today, Mr. Shelby Turner. We have Jay Wright from Portsmouth with us today. We have Mr. Ralph Clark from Ocean View Lodge number 335. And I bring that up because both Lafayette and Monroe were both Masons. Okay, so we have had usual representation from across the state today, and I'm really proud that our people have been able to come here. I thank Aaron for working with me for so long, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
And Cat too.